G'day everyone, welcome to another CSBP Fertilisers Market Update. I'm Grey Johnston, joined as ever by our Sales Strategy and Reliability Manager, Ben Sudlow. Hello Ben.
G'day Grey, how are you going today?
Very well, thank you. It's been gratifying to see some reasonably good rainfall through the West Australian grain growing areas since we last caught up.
Yeah.
And as a result, we know we've got urea flying in through the ports in Western Australia, and it's flying out the door at a reasonably similar rate. Give us an update on what's happening in granular nitrogen.
Yeah, so probably the price bit to one side now because, as I said last time, it's now getting it in, getting it out. And look, we've the decision we made now probably 6-8 weeks ago to get ships in, arriving late May through early June is really paying off because those ships are really rolling around the coast pretty steadily. I think it's the first time that I can remember that we've had a ship in every dispatch port in this week, a separate ship in every port. So we've had one in Geraldton unloading this week. We've got one going to start in Kwinana today. We've got one in Albany just finished unloading, and we've got one in Esperance as well. So,
And we've had one in Bunbury as well.
and Bunbury's full. Bunbury's full of stock. So we've got stock everywhere, ready to go. And I think that the key thing is, so we've got it in, meaning getting it over the port into the sheds. And of course, the next bit is to manage the demand coming at the market now to get the stuff out. And we are looking where the major demand is, and look, appointments are getting tight. However, we do have some slack in the system where if people want some product from one location, and they can't get appointment that they need, we'll look to try and redirect them to a location where we've got some slack in the system, and we'll be able to get product to them, hopefully in near enough time to meet their needs.
Yeah, so for instance, if you were struggling to get an appointment in Albany, we're pretty confident we'll be able to find some space for you in short order in a wage in a Bunbury or a Kwinana, for instance.
Yeah, and look, to be clear, there's appointments in Albany available next week now. So but if things get tight and you want it in 2 days' time, come to us and we'll see where we can send you, maybe to Bunbury, maybe direct you off to Kwinana, just make sure farmers can get in a timely fashion to get it on their crops to make sure they optimise their nitrogen use.
And in terms of liquid Flexi-N, we gave the update a couple of weeks ago. We're manufacturing flat out. We've still got good supply of that product.
Yeah, it's same thing, Grey. We're making everywhere as fast as we can, 24 hours a day. It's again, we probably we need to see this urea surge. It's making sure now we're getting our stocks up as high as they can be for when that liquid surge comes, which is typically slightly after when you hit the peak of urea. But anyone who can take stock now, which allows us to keep that flow and not have a peak, have to wait too long when actual use comes, which is more likely to be in that first couple of weeks of July at this stage.
So a good update there on nitrogen supply. When we last caught up, we also talked through a little bit around the end of season offers we've got in the market as it relates to phosphates and potash,
Yep.
and how those offers reflect some of the look forward on pricing. So I guess therefore for those, the look forward on pricing for those two commodities. So it's probably relevant to get an update on anything that's happened on global markets in the couple of weeks on phosphates and potash.
Yeah, Grey. There has been a bit on both potash and phosphates. The short story on potash is when we last met, we were talking about that India and China coming to the point where they will finalise a contract price, which they did 12 months ago. So the one they held last year was pretty much sitting in the market for 12 months. That was quite low by historical standards. That's seen large demand come in, and with a large demand come in, supplies now got a little bit tight, and of course prices moved up. They've just settled, I think, last week with India at $349 CFR to India. That's $65 higher than what it was this time last year. And we expect China will settle. Well, I think the expectation is China will settle in around that sort of mark as well. So in sort of Aussie dollar terms, to settle the market is now $100 more than what it was last year. And recognising that typically China and India sets a floor, and then markets then sort of set back off that benchmark bottom price.
Do we have any sense of, we know that over the last couple of years we saw that big run up in the potash prices that was driven by disruptions as a cause of the Russia, Ukraine, Belarus kind of issues. Do we have a sense of what's driving those uplifts? It's mainly just that supply-demand balance tightening?
Exactly, Gray. I mean, they've seen, the demand has been very strong, and they're just supplies are just tightening up. I mean, it doesn't seem. I don't think the expectation is you'll see this major run up like we saw back then. There's just no impetus for that because the supply is still pretty good. But while the demand is there, and there's people waiting for stock, I think the reasonable expectation with potash for the next 3 to 6 months that those prices, which are now going to be at least 65 US higher than what they were this time last year, are likely to hold into the market.
And then on phosphates, you said you had an update there too.
Yeah, so we last spoke about phosphates, which was demand high, prices moving higher, and prices are up in Aussie dollar terms from when the last shipment arrived in WA. This MAP to now about 150 Aussie dollars. Now, what the change to that was? Well, now China were going to come back into the market. And what was the implications of that? And so what's changed since then? Looks China's come back into the market. The view was that they would last year they supplied 6 million tons of MAP and DAP into the market. They've now got an expectation that they're probably going to be limited to about 4 million tons. So the MAP and DAP that was now allowed to be exported is likely to be coming to the market with lesser volume. So the rest of the story needs to go back to when they first put um, the ceasing export on MAP and DAP, which was early December last year. So none of that's been exported in that time. The producers are going, well, we've got all this product. How can we get around that loophole? And what they've done is lower grade MAP, which is pretty much below 17% P, um, which is MPS and MP products below 17% P. So in our terms, you're thinking ag grasses, ag stars, and sort of lower levels sort of high ag flows are now that was flooding out of China. And what was also flooding out of China was single super. So they were all the phosphates were going out, but not the high MAP and DAP. So what's happened since we last met was the Chinese government has said, well, you can export now MAP and DAP, but they've completely ceased exporting, allowed exporting of MPS and MP products below that 17% P. So that's now stopped. So that's the first problem in terms of what has been a loophole is now closed. And the second one, single super, which had been flooding out of China, largely into Brazil. There was a 10-day inspection window where you had 10 days to get ability to then export to Brazil. In this case, they've extended that to 60 days, which is 60 uh, business days, which means 3 months. So 3 months now, if you want to get a ship, you got to wait 3 months to get that to market. So that is a classic a foot on the hose or handbrake to supply. So whilst it all looked good, MAP and DAP is coming out. Suddenly, yeah, it is. It's a lesser volume. Single super's now got a handbrake on it. And the lower analysis products, MPS, MP, and MP products below that 17% are now not allowed to export. So that's really the market's absorbing the implications of that. And of course, China being a supplier to Australia, how long that lasts for and how severe that upsets the supply-demand balance of single super and the lower grade MPS and the MAP and DAP, that really hasn't done anything to see the pressure come off on what was otherwise a tight market.
Digesting all of that and wrapping it into where we've seen the market trade, you're saying the market is still absorbing that information. Have we seen a change in the spot prices to reflect
So
that?
prices continue to move up. That's
Yeah,
been
okay.
the take-home measure of that long ramble grey is that the prices have continued to move north.
Yeah, and that is relevant only in the sense that, as we talked about last time, very challenging to forecast where phosphate prices could end up in the relevant purchasing period for the 2026 growing season. But current pricing is as good an indicator as what we've got at the moment.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, so we've covered off there on near-term supply of nitrogen into the WA market for the remainder of the 2025 growing season, and then talked through some of the issues affecting potash and phosphate markets globally, which have relevance, of course, because of the pricing that's been offered for 2026 product in our 2025 end of season offer. And as you alluded to when we caught up a couple of weeks ago, and as we discussed, broadly that pricing is this year's kind of pricing for next year product if you're willing to pay cash before the 30th of June. But of course, get in touch with your CSBP account manager to work through that offer and see if that's the right offer for you. Anything else we should be covering today, Ben?
So no, that's probably enough for today, Gray.
Wonderful. Thanks for covering that all off with us, Ben, and thank you all out there in Fertiliser World for joining us. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
This podcast is provided as general information only. The content of this podcast is not a recommendation and has been prepared without taking your objectives or circumstances into account. Before acting on the content of this, you should consider its appropriateness to your circumstances and seek independent advice.